Justice for all.
Administrator Dill, members of council, fellow members of the community, and city staff, thank you for being here tonight for our February 22nd city council meeting. It's a shame that the mayor can't be here. I know he always enjoys fun nights, and we've got a great night tonight. Some exciting news for the police department, which is always exciting news for our community as well. And we get to hear from our esteemed Campbell County Judge Executive. I had to say that. Absolutely, and we will do roll call as well.
Ms. Kelly is absent. Mr. Pendery.
Here.
Mr. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Eagle.
Here.
Mr. Blau.
Here.
Okay. Awesome. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? There's actually two sets, one from our January 18th meeting, and then one from last Tuesday when we had our special meeting of council. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Yes, I have two revisions I would like to suggest, just minor. On page 2, where it's council resignation, Connie accepted a job with the Metropolitan Opera, not the Manhattan Opera. And then
It was a good job, regardless.
And then I would like a note on on the next page on Ron Dill announced his retirement. I would like it noted that I personally, Ken Bowman, stressed that we should have a national search for his replacement. Other than that, the minutes are probably fine.
Move to approve of the revisions. I'll second. Worldwide search? You sure?
That's national. National.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, let's open it up to the community for visitors and communications. Chief Casey Kilgore, I think that you've got some news for us.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate it. Tonight, as you said, very exciting night for the police department. We get to add 2 excellent police officers to the police force that is almost already here tonight. The guys who already have working. As you guys on the Public Safety Committee know, we went through a hiring process a couple months ago. Ended up with these 2 excellent applicants that I actually have a lot to say about. Both really great guys, Jeff Lucas and TJ French. Both very calm, cool demeanor. Very, very impressive resumes on both guys. If you could write a dream resume for a lateral police officer, you could just put his name at the top and his name at the top of that. Out of the ballpark. Both guys fitting in well and very dedicated to serving our citizens. We're very happy to add them tonight. Jeff comes to us with 13 years total in policing, the most recent with the Highland Heights Police Department. Ton of training, ton of experience, bachelor's degree, youth coach, SRO, you name it, it's on his resume. He just checks all the boxes. And the same with TJ. TJ comes to us with 9 years of policing, the most recent with the Campbell County Police Department, serving as the SRO over the Phoenix program. Before that, he served for 5 years in Virginia Beach as a police officer. Also has a ton of training experience, college degree, you name it, they both have it. We're lucky to have them. So I will present both guys with their new badge. Jeff Lucas is now badge 4460. So there you go, Jeff. Badge number 4461. Congratulations, TJ. Give a little 10-minute speech or introduce your family. The floor is yours.
I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity. A lot of people have been asking me, if it's a good change and stuff. And every time I tell them that each day that I've been here, there's something else that I like more than the previous day. And I think that's what we're all searching for. So tonight, I have my wife Danielle, my son Solomon, my dad Jack, my stepmom Sue, my mother-in-law Dawn, and my father-in-law Donnie. I got a lot of support. Thank you, guys. Welcome aboard.
I just want to echo what TJ said. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's a great community, great guys to work with. Everybody's been really nice at Park. Had a great 2 weeks of training and getting used to the city of Park. Just want to say thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Tonight I've got my dad, Gary Lucas, and his girlfriend Mary are here with him. I've got my in-laws, Dave McCann and Paul McCann here in the back. My wife Lauren's here. We've been married for 15 years, and then my 2 boys right here, Grady and Grant. They're 11 and 9. Just very proud of them to be here tonight.
Make the boys stand up because we're being shot.
Thank you very much for allowing us to present them here tonight. Just in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've bumped into other police chiefs and police lieutenants and stuff like that at meetings. And everyone I bumped into in the past 3 weeks has said, I heard you hired Jeff and TJ, I heard you hired Jeff and TJ. Going, every single person I see, I heard you hired Jeff and TJ. So it's like the talk of the county right now. It's like the NBA draft or something. But the same can be said for everyone in this room. We've built up a great police department. They make my job super easy. I'm so lucky. I've got no one I need to worry about. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think that those of us on council, and certainly the Public Safety Committee, and I'm lucky enough that in my first term on council, I get to serve on the Public Safety Committee, and words don't do justice. The caliber of men and women that we interview for these positions and ultimately hire. We're just so lucky as the city of Fort Thomas to have these people out on the streets protecting us and representing us, and thank you for all you guys do, and welcome to the 2 new guys.
Thank you. And to reiterate what Ben said, if anybody could take 5 minutes and sit back with us at any of these interview processes, they would understand how lucky we are. It's a shame that not everybody's involved in this because it's something special that we've all been fortunate enough to see firsthand. I couldn't say more nice things about what we've done, what you've accomplished, and who we've hired here. So, Ben nailed it. Mayor Pendery.
Thank you, and up next we've got Steve Pendery, the Campbell County Judge Executive, and a couple members of his team. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing us a few minutes. Probably most of you know Justin, who is our economic development / community development / lobbyist. But he's not doing other things. Those are the main titles. And Matt Elberfeld, who's the Chief Administrative Officer of Campbell County and the Deputy Judge Executive on the way. He's in charge. Bear with you tonight so that if anybody tries to stop the panel, they're free of this here. The auxiliary brains, the vast stores of knowledge. I'm so impressed that, oh well, now they're leaving. Local government is incredibly fascinating. And, I'm impressed that you're staying here. I'm here to talk about a particular subject, but I do want to, oh, thank you. I do want to take a minute with a news flash or two. Triad, the economic development agency that covers the 3 northern Kentucky counties, from time to time hires a consultant and does a little benchmarking work, and they've completed that process and came up with at least a couple of statistics that I think are fun to share. If you look at the economic performance of northern Kentucky over the last 5 years, and if your yardstick is jobs created, here's how things look compared to the rest of the state. From 2015 to 2020, which takes in maybe a year of the COVID epidemic, the state of Kentucky lost 42,000 jobs. And if you know about the Golden Triangle, where most jobs are produced, that'd be Lexington, Louisville, and northern Kentucky. Louisville and Lexington lost between 4,000 to 6,000 jobs. And the punchline, northern Kentucky created 11,000 net new jobs. So compared to Louisville and Lexington and the rest of the state, we're not doing so bad. That information completes a picture because in the prior 20 years or so in the entire state of Kentucky, the lion's share of jobs created happened in northern Kentucky. So we can say with confidence that in the last generation, northern Kentucky has been the economic engine for the state of Kentucky. When I say we created more jobs, that's not adjusted for population. That's what it is. And you're all part of the big picture. I would submit to you that we do so well because we all work together. We don't have one big city to organize ourselves around. And so if we don't work together, we don't get very far. This must be the part talk that somebody wants to drown out, right? I'm familiar with that. More time is bad.
It's a button.
I'm just going to turn up the volume. So I wanted to touch on an example of that, and that is the radio project, which covered 3 northern Kentucky counties, and I think many of you, as elected officials, are familiar with. You probably know that we had a dead spot. We had the mine in Fort Thomas, and if we hadn't all worked together to cure that and other issues, then we wouldn't have necessarily had an improvement on the system. But that project was talked about around the state of Kentucky as the largest regional project of its type in the history of the state. And we spent $30 million in the 3 counties there, and yet we saved, because of economies of scale, about $6 million on the deal. So our next project, after we got that one taken care of, was to be an improvement in not only connections, but bandwidth for anybody that is going to use the internet, which is everywhere, right? And the 3 counties had that process underway. There was an RFP created in Boone County that we all had input in. The thought was they would take the lead because, to be frank with you, in all circumstances, they have the money to pay for a system like that. And in some circumstances, the other 2 counties don't. So they had the lead, and negotiated the beginnings of a deal that we all had initially into, and COVID came along. And if anybody wondered whether it was important to have internet connections and bandwidth, we got over that in a hurry. Because there are thousands of people across northern Kentucky with no connection at all, and more thousands that didn't have the bandwidth to cope with. Mom and dad are home from work, trying to work remotely. The kids are home from school, trying to work remotely, and grandparents or younger people too are trying to communicate with their doctors rather than go to the hospital for fear they're going to get COVID when they arrive or if they spend time there. So there was additional urgency. We got through the process. All 3 counties signed up. Using our bargaining power, we got additional concessions, and so the final deal looks like this. Over the course of 3 years, everybody in northern Kentucky will have fiber optic cable to the door from Cincinnati Bell that will be available. What's the advantage of that? That future-proofs our data for as far as we can see. The best technology available for this purpose is fiber optic cable. It's more private, it carries more traffic, and at greater speed. So you have light on the wire, you have electrical impulses, you have light on glass is the way this technology works. And anybody you talk to that's a technology guru will tell you that well into a future, there is no end to the usefulness of this product, and it should be the preeminent technology for many years to come. So, not only will everybody get fiber to the door within 3 years, residences should be served within 2. The additional time for 2 to 3 years is necessary to get apartments involved. You're dealing with a landlord there and not the user, and you're not your head, Joe, and everybody probably knows that it takes a little something to get business people to allow the properties to be rewired when they already have to deal with somebody else. We're not going to have that problem, I don't think, with the regular population. So we expect within 2 years that residences are going to have a fiber optic connection available to them. And there have already been something like 2,000 such connections made in this county. is, you know, their crews are handling things that are rate of $300 to $400 a month. So they could meet their own projections. I mentioned the additional buying power they have in 3 counties. And while everyone is entitled to a thing called the Pendery program, right now the pricing with Bell is based on the bandwidth that you desire. So it would say, give me 250 megabytes, you have a certain price. 500 is a price point, 750 is a price point, 1 gig, and under new arrangement, you say on 500, you'll pay the price for 250. If you want 750, you'll pay the price for 500. Everybody gets a price break, including some on gig-like levels across the board. So that when we go explain this to each of the cities, and yes, we can, because you're going to probably get questions from members of the community about this. And you tell them that there's something in this for everyone. You get a connection in the first place, you get additional bandwidth, or you get a better price, then you get paid. So that is the message. This is usually the moment that I appeal to my friends over here for anything that I missed. There's one last statement to make, and that is that according to Cincinnati Bill, when the 3 counties are wired or strung up, I guess we should use the word wired because this is really fiber optic and not wired. When the 3 county job is complete, this will be the largest area in the United States that gives fiber to the door. So, pretty cool thing. And that gentleman, what do we say? Anything? Okay.
What is the county investment in this to get this done?
Close to $5 million, and that will be federal money. In our case, actually, all 3 counties will do it. I think you all are familiar with this, but the money that's coming from the federal government comes with strings attached. And in the struggle to find something that is worth the indebtedness that a country is going to have to eventually pay off, this is one of the first things that comes to mind because it's an improvement that is dramatic and worth it and will endure far enough in the future. You know, you're matching a long-term obligation with a long-term asset. So that's what we're looking at.
Is that affinity pricing in effect now?
For people who get the connection, yes.
Okay. And are there any assurances from Bell that they won't behave the way others have that have come into our community and that we get service on with the price increases? I mean, it's, you know, they wrote you in at $29.95 or whatever, and then it just boom, boom, boom. I mean,
Well, you know, obviously there's going to be price increases in the future, but the promise and the expectation is that there's still going to be a differential based on whether you're involved in this program or not.
Does the program end at a certain point? Do you have to sign up by a certain point to be a part of the affinity program, or is it an automatic thing until?
I think that's an automatic thing, and I don't know that that's scheduled to change, is it?
No, it's forever, and it will be automatic, and Bell is having some upgrades on their billing software to make it. So if you currently have fiber optics, check your bill and then call Cincinnati Bell, tell them you can kind of get a new program. But that is a forever arrangement.
Is that something they have to mention when the public calls in that they want to be a part of the Northern Kentucky affinity program, or is it automatically happening?
And my answer is you shouldn't have to tell them, but you would be wise to.
And then when they raise a bill, you call them back. But I think, go ahead.
No, so they're overhauling their billing database, and this is quite a monumental shift on their end too. So yes, it will eventually be automatic, but I would take the 30 seconds to call.
You know, this is the future. We've seen the last couple of years how many people were behind because they didn't have the connection they needed to keep up with their studies. It's unfortunate and expensive, but it's something that there's a lot of people out there that struggle.
I just have concerns that 3 years from now we'll be at their mercy, you know, with prices.
Well, honestly, you can switch out to somebody else. You know, this doesn't prevent other players from participating in this marketplace. It should confer a pretty big advantage on Cincinnati Bell because of what they're going to be able to produce as a product. But the others are there.
That's great, thank you.
So, do you have any questions for the county about anything else while we have assembled the finest minds in our
Money for Route 8. Should we bring up Route 8?
I just,
I don't have any questions. No questions.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate what you do, and I speak from personal experience.
Thank you.
thank you very much, Judge Pendery, and I should have said this while all the police folks were here, but please don't feel like you're more than welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting, but if that's the you could also find your way out.
It's on record at least. Thank you, Mayor Pendery.
We feel welcome. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Up next, I think we've got our 2021 Fire Department Annual Report with Chief Hayman.
Yes, thank you. So I was the one to volunteer first, but go ahead and present my report. Go ahead and get it out of the way. You know, I'd just like to just highlight a few things from the report. It is. So I just completed my first year as fire chief. I started January 1 of 2021. Needless to say, it was an adventurous year. I had two big topics that just kept coming up, and that was COVID and that was the building. And those were the two things that really dominated the conversation for the fire department. COVID for many of the obvious reasons, but some of the things that it prohibited me from trying to implement some new programs and everything. So I'm still excited. I got a whole list of things to unveil, and hopefully we can start unveiling some of those next year, or this year, with the fire department and the community services that we can do. But, you know, the year started out, after the first month, is we lost a 20-year veteran, Scott Shepard, who retired from the fire department. We immediately began testing. We were able to hire Charles Long, firefighter paramedic, at the end of March. And, you know, for the first 9 months of his employment, he's been a stellar hire. So we knocked out the park with him. So I'm really proud about that. But also in March, and as the judge was mentioning, is the fire department in Campbell County finally began using the 700 radio system. We upgraded all of our radio communications equipment, and 90 days is the best way to describe that transition for us, going from an old in-place system to the new system. Worked real closely with Chief Kilgore and his staff as far as getting that dead spot taken care of within the city, and after many issues along the way with that, we finally got that turned on in December, so we're happy about that. May 1st is when we moved out of the department up here to the Armory. We spent all summer, most of the fall up in the Armory, and it was adequate accommodations. It provided us the opportunity to get a little bit more out in the community just because we're smack dab in the heartbeat of the community in the park. And that was really neat for all of our folks. Just kind of be out there. Lots of kids coming up, look at the fire trucks. They're standing out there. Lots of interactions. So it was a pretty fun endeavor for us. So it gave us a little bit of a unique perspective in how we can continue to be present in the community. So that was fun. November 16th was the day that we returned back up to the station. You know, I would call us about 95% complete up there, and the accommodations so far are just first class. You know, the living area for the department, for the firefighters, it's over the top, and it's really nice. The biggest improvement that I see is the windows. The windows, it's like it's deafening up there, it's so quiet. So we're really appreciative of that. As far as run totals, we went up a little bit again this year. We spent just shy of 1,900 runs. Most of the run volume continues to be EMS related. Well over about 75% of our call volume originates from EMS. If you all recall, back in November of 2020, a couple months before I started, council purchased what's called Linden Cpr device. It does manual compressions for anybody using cardiac arrest. And we're seeing dramatic results out of that. Typically, what we try to strive for whenever we come across cardiac arrest is a term called ROS, which is return to spontaneous circulation. Without these devices, we're under the 20% mark is usually what the success rate is from that. And out of that, you're probably looking at a 5% as far as walking out of the hospital. And that's just an unfortunate reality. What we're seeing already within the past year's data is about 80% ROS. That's dramatic. Now, it doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be a survival outcome. However, it's greatly increasing those odds. I can think of 2 people right off the bat right now that without it, they wouldn't be here today, and I know they're at home and they resume their normal lives. So that's one of those inventions that has really taken us by storm, and it's been a worthwhile investment. So that's one of the good things right there. Like I said, as the year comes, this upcoming year, we're looking forward to completing the city building so that we can get back in there full-fledged, complete our side. Hopefully, we'll put COVID behind us. We're going to be able to increase our public education programs, some of the different community involvement programs, expand our CPR. Our CPR was a little bit limited because of COVID. However, one of the neat things we did last year is we wound up teaching CPR to all of our general services staff, and that segued into all the city administrative staff. So we're going to keep that on the 2-year recertification cycle. So we're really proud of that. That's kind of where we're at. That's the year in a nutshell, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do those CPR machines ever expire?
They haven't given us anything like that. They're not talking as far as a length of service, so I'm sure it's going to be as with any mechanical devices when you start having problems with the giving us that again, it's time to get a new one. We have the latest one. I know there was 2 previous versions of the one that we have right now. I'm not sure. I haven't heard if they're improving them or anything on that list, but that works pretty good.
Are there any situations where 2 runs for a cardiac event happen at the same time?
As a matter of fact, we did have one this past year. Albeit rare, but it did happen. We had a YouTube manual CPR where the ambulance was on the run. Recall personnel came back and they took one of the other staff vehicles that did not have any of that, so we just took our normal EMS equipment and then we waited on one of our mutual aid partners. I think it was Bellevue Dayton that came in and used their equipment. So there was a time when
Do most of the other agencies have those now?
they're getting there, yeah. And COVID accelerated that, because CPR is a pretty invasive procedure as we're running as far as infection control goes. Trying to protect ourselves as much as we can. So there was some grant money out there early on that was able to fund some of those.
Would it be beneficial to us, especially if there was grant money, to acquire a second one potentially for the wear and tear on one and just rotate them out?
That's going to be in my budget proposal to the city this year. For our second unit is a fire engine right now. We could carry a complete set of advanced life support equipment on there, and that's something that I want to add to it.
And do you know if there's any more grant money out for those things?
We're keeping our eyes open. It's hit and miss. A lot of times it comes up with a really narrow opening as far as when you can apply for it. So we're always keeping our ear open for anything like that.
Keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Sounds like that's a worthwhile investment there.
Yeah, we really lucked out on that. A lot of times when you get new technology, you're not necessarily sure how it's going to work out. This one really proved its worth.
Any other questions?
Move to receive and file.
Thank you, Chief.
Second.
All in favor, is that? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much, Chief. Moving on to reports of boards, committees, and commissions. We've got a report from Mr. Diesel on the Recreation Committee.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to read this whole thing, but Ron put a lot of work into it. So with your permission, Mayor Pendery, I'm going to read this entire thing.
Granted.
All right, so the rec committee met, actually spent a couple of times to discuss some topics. This is a summary of what we've discussed over the last couple of meetings. So city staff updated our current city projects with a visual presentation. Items discussed include the potential phasing of a park in the area around the south portion of Tower Park and soccer sports complex. The designs focused on input received from previous meetings, including the need for parking entry into the adjacent subdivision, and pedestrian safety movements. Additionally, the concept of a temporary movable skate park amenities could be introduced in the lower level of the practice fields and alternatively located in the lower portion of Highland Park or suitable location. A sample application of these amenities has been priced at about $29,000, and it's in your packet on page 27 if you want to see an example of what we would get for 29 grand. And the thought there around the, as opposed to putting in a permanent structure, is because we're still trying to land on the spot, either down by the salt dome or potentially at Highland Park, or potentially none of the above if it doesn't work out. So have a temporary one is a good option, and we did speak with the skateboard groups, and they seem to think that this would suffice at least in the interim. So they were happy with it. I don't know if they'd say happy with it, but they were satisfied with it. The concept for additional parking adjacent to the soccer field of Sargent and the potential turnabout on Sargent entrance were also presented. A portion of this plan involves property owned by the city and also by Fort Thomas Independent School District. It was agreed to forward these concepts to the Fort Thomas Independent School District for their consideration, with follow-up to create a potential project that addresses these issues for consideration by council. Discussion also centered around the concept of potential spray park in the lower Highland Park location. Staff is continuing to develop the conceptual design and preliminary cost. The variations of types of systems were explained in concepts and will incorporate multiple system options. These details should be available for consideration in the spring. Staff also shared preliminary concepts for the property recently obtained off of Memorial Parkway, now known as Carlisle Park. A brief review of the potential amenities included open air pergola, walking paths, pickleball courts, dog park, etc. The committee has reviewed the recent implementation plan for and is presently forwarding for consideration of the City Council to purchase the movable skate park structures, page 27, and staff is requesting authorization from this council to move forward with the purchase.
I'd like to add a couple things to that. There was in one of our previous meetings too, we had discussed not just the splash park in the lower bowl area of Highland Park, but we also discussed what it would cost to put a skate park down there. And renderings for that, we all agreed we wanted to see that. We haven't seen that yet for comparison, so I'll put that on record that we still looking to see that cost-wise. We also talked about a possible small splash pad up at Tower Park across from the shed as well, which wasn't mentioned in here, which I think is a nice amenity for up there for even the kids' school. So I want to make sure that was on record that we still haven't seen those yet. So, when we do our comparison, there's still a lot of work to do. I know. Yeah. I can see you.
I know Chris is working, and I'm glad you brought him up. Chris is working on those concepts, and the reason it wasn't added to this report is one, the point of the report is to move forward to get approval, potential approval for the temporary skate park equipment, but those pieces will be built in later. Yes, we discussed them.
Yeah,
but yes,
that's part of the report too, is what we discussed. That's what usually the report is. So
yeah, so, and I know Chris is working those into the plan.
Good.
I'll move approval.
This is for release of $29,000 for temporary equipment. Absolutely.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor?
We have to do roll call. We have to do spend money.
Roll call. Aye.
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 Aye. Does that, I know that number was the same number we looked at 6 months ago, or a few months ago. Does that take into consideration any increases in cost? We need to.
It does say about.
This is, okay, so I mean, it is amazing how quickly things have escalated that we get what we need.
No,
so,
actually, we've had recent contact with them, and it hasn't varied. If we're working within that budget, and they know that, if it goes over 30,000, then it goes through a public bid process, and they'll have to come back.
Okay, is that what it is? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're basically approving it within the threshold of public bid procurement policies. So it it goes over that, it'll come back.
I know.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Jeff. Moving on, we've got a report from the Public Works Committee of Council on our 2022 street program.
Again, I'm going to read a statement into the record too. It looks like we're intending to proceed with the street program. So, Honorable Mayor and Council, we, the undersigned members of the Public Works Committee of Council, hereby report that a public hearing was conducted on Tuesday, January 25, 2022, regarding the city's proposed 2022 resurfacing program. The 2022 resurfacing program consists of the following streets: Altamont Court, Bivouac Avenue, Glenway Avenue, Hawthorne Avenue, Linden Court, Summit Avenue from Grand to Avon, Avon Place, Carolina Avenue, Garden Way from Holiday to the terminus, Linden Avenue, Rossmore Avenue, and Tower Hill Road from North Fort Thomas to Watch Point Drive. Committee members and staff conducted the hearing, which was attended by 40 residents and property owners, 18 of which addressed the committee. Generally speaking, there was support for the proposed improvements outlined within the attached engineer's comprehensive report. The committee fielded typical issues of the program, including assessment method, corner lots, timing of the work, and utility coordination, which were answered by staff. Residents on Linden and Carolina expressed concern about the trees affecting the sidewalks. Rossmore Avenue residents expressed frustration with the rebuilds and the new house construction and how it may have affected the street condition. There was one request to add curb replacement to Linden Court and a request to change to a rolled curb profile on Hawthorne Avenue. There was also considerable discussion on drainage issues present on Tower Hill Road. Staff and our city engineer will be scheduling on-site review of this matter. Generally, questions were addressed at the hearing, and staff will provide follow-up to other issues discussed. Based on the results of the public hearing of the Public Works Committee of Council, hereby recommends the city proceed with the street resurfacing program or resurfacing improvements as proposed, and that the Board of Council authorize the first reading of the ordinance acknowledging the city's intent to proceed with the project. And a side note, I have to say, I'm on Altamont, and SD1 was there today scoping all the storm drains and sewer in advance of this happening, just as due diligence. I was glad to see that. I went out and talked to them, and they said that's why they were there. So that was good.
Very good. So, motion to approve?
Is it moved?
Or do we wait for the ordinance to be read?
Just accept the report.
Motion accepted. Is that all we do?
Second.
Okay. Moving on to reports of officers.
Yeah, do we vote on that? It's weird when Ken reads a report because he's the one that does all this. We're going to miss you in about 9 months. We don't do that.
Oh, we have a motion and a second, so we can, all in favor?
Aye. Is that correct, Ken?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll receive and file then.
Thank you, Ken. Reports of officers, Chief Hayman, do you have anything for the monthly report?
Yeah, just to add to it, as you'll notice that a lot of the fire statistics in the report looks very different, and that's due to us converting over to new reporting software, and we've got new recognition software, and we're still working on implementing it. So we're just dealing with minimal information. So in upcoming months, you can expect that to change greatly to provide a little bit more detail.
Thank you for that. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to Chief Kilgore with the monthly police department report.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say briefly that we, in January, were able to get back to some of our public outreach, things that we enjoy doing. Teaching in the classroom, offering rides to school to raffle winners, and getting invited to go speak to Girl Scout troops about the topics that they're interested in. So, pandemic kind of put a little damper on that, but we're starting to get those requests again. We're happy to go back out and do those types of outreach things. The other thing worth mentioning is we hired 2 officers tonight. I just want to say that we've hired 6 people in the past year and promoted 4. So it's been a very busy year for the Public Safety Committee, John and I, so thank you guys for all the interviews, and we really grabbed the best people we could find, so happy to do that. So,
Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to receive and file?
them to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to the city administrator's report.
Thank you. If it's okay, I would like to defer for the moment and go to an order of new business. Chanda is here tonight, and she's been working with the RFP on the branding, and I know she has another meeting to get to. So if we could bounce that up at this point,
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it.
Let's have Jen. Thank you.
Chanda, do you want to just tell us where we
Sure.
are?
I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because this is posted on social media. I know that we talked about it in council. It's also on our city site. It's kind of been out there since January 1st is when our RFP was announced for rebranding. Since then, our deadline was February 15th. We received 10 proposals from companies in northern Kentucky and over the river to Cincinnati. And what we would like to do to move forward with that is to create a committee made up of run board, council, finance, design review, and a few staff members. And in doing that, that's why I'm here tonight, is to talk to you and see if we're asking for 2 people. We don't want a large committee because I think if there's too many people, then it just becomes a little difficult just to manage that. But our meeting date would be March 7th from 4 to 6:30. And what we would do is I have created a Google Doc with all 10 of the RFPs and the companies' names on the files. And we would share that information to everyone involved in the committee. And then we would meet on that date. Everyone would review prior to us gathering. And then once we were in the space, we would talk about each proposal. Hopefully we would narrow it down to 3, hopefully 3, but at least 5 of the companies. And then on March 15th, we would start interviews. And hopefully within that 2-week span of time, be able to come up with and one of the companies to move forward with the branding of the city.
What exactly are you looking for? The branding of the city? What's the RFP include?
Well, it was very vague because I think that we've never, as far as I'm aware, we've never branded the city. So I don't think we know exactly what we want. So when people reached out, we didn't put a budget with it. We didn't tell them what we wanted. We are allowing them to come to us because we're looking for a partnership in this. And in doing so, we just offered, you tell us what we need, we'll make a decision collectively as a committee. And then once we make that decision of what we need, what we don't need, then I think the numbers will follow with that.
When you say brand, what specifically are you?
I think that's up for the committee. I think this is going to be a massive collaboration. It could be anything from fire to PD, making sure that our city, you know when you're in Fort Thomas, you know when you're in a space. It's also making sure we have 4 or 5 different, our city seal right now, there are 4 or 5 different ones that are being used. We don't have letterhead. So we can go with the little things, or we can go with, and look at websites. There's so much, the possibilities are endless, and that's why we need to form this committee to decide what it is that we want as a collective, and then move forward with that.
I think it's a great idea. Over the years, we've started to brand different events throughout town, even from the Renaissance Board to the Rec Center and everything else. The cohesiveness is huge. We've just expanded over years. Just natural that it is time to bring it all together. So.
And really to connect our business districts. There are 5, and a lot of people don't even know what those are. So just making sure it's educating our community.
Yeah, typically you have kind of a palette of colors, symbols, those types of things. We've done a lot of work in our business districts, planning what we want it to look like. Wayfinding is going to be an important part of that. Typically your branding relates to wayfinding, all the way to your letterhead, to decals on vehicles, to everything else. Your social media presence, and you kind of build off of your brand, and it relates to your events. You take that and pull that part and then relate it to the
It'll make things easier in the future as
Yes.
well. So that's the whole point. Work hard now, so it's also on in the future. So we're not trying to brand everything individualized. So, I Thanks, I'd love if there's an opportunity for me to be on part of this as a council member too. I would love nothing more to be a part of this. All in favor, say aye.
We would like to have 2 members of council. 2 members of council for that.
And I think Janet did a great job explaining kind of the concept. The idea is to be very collaborative with a lot of the groups that interact with the city. And start fresh. I know she did a lot of work with the RFP. There was a lot of people that brought input. They like you to tell you how much money you're going to spend. They want to know exactly what you're looking for. But I think we're working not really in reverse, but we're saying, look, it's a blank slate.
Bring us ideas.
We'd like to bring all your ideas. You work with other communities. You work with companies. We'd like to see the menu of what you have available, and then we'll start to focus on the things that we think are a priority, and then ultimately come back to council and say we think we need a budget that fits, this programming of what we want to produce out of that process. So it's not an accelerated time frame. Thank you for setting the meeting, because I think that's important, is to just make that progress point in front of us. So I know that Janet has talked to some of the other committees, the Rent Board and Design Review, and I think they have some people. So a couple of people from council is completely appropriate to help guide that process. So
I want to mention 2 things. Obviously, this is for the city, so I know that there are people that people will know, will have connections to. So I want to be very specific and just asking that if you decide to move forward with this, that you put relationships aside and focus on what's best for the city, as well as there's no set time in terms of how many meetings we'll have. So just making sure that you're available for it, especially if we do interviews. It won't be all of us that are doing the interviews. It will be appointing a few people that will sit in on the interviews and bring everyone's questions to the table for the interviewing process, because it might be a little overwhelming with that amount of people. So
I'd be willing to serve also if it helps.
I love the way you're going about this too. I love you let creatives do what they do, and it shows when they come to the table with an open-ended question like that, an agenda. It shows how much research and how much knowledge they put into this plan coming forward to rebrand our city. And I think they could be able to weed out people quicker that way too as well. So I think that's a brilliant way to do it. Creatives they like to do that too. I hope you want them to work. I love that idea.
So I
We work well together. I've worked with a lot of them before. I've been on Renaissance.
One of them, if they get over the top, call me in and I'll kick them out.
Lord knows, ask Ron, I have some free time too. I'll be able to make all the
Bellevue's a great example. I remember when they did it, and everybody was screaming about the money they spent on their branding, and they thought it was so stupid, but today it works. It really
And we
works.
took a different approach than what Bellevue, because Bellevue automatically threw the money out there, they knew exactly what they wanted, and we're going about that.
Yeah, I didn't know how the process happened. I just remember all the feedback
Yeah.
initially where everybody was screaming about it, thinking it was stupid, but they got on the stage and break it down.
All right, well,
Thank you. Seriously, that's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement and energy around that, so thank you, Janet, very much. Should we move back here to Ron's report?
sure. I just want to update on a few items and bring forward a couple of new things just to share. The first one being the farmers market mess hall. We've had a lot of conversation about the area where the farmers market has landed over here next to, adjacent to the mess hall. We feel like it really prospered there this year, and you're going to hear reports of exactly what their numbers look like. So they've been very successful. They'd like to continue at this location. It pairs really well with the other season, which is the indoor season, using this facility. However, there are a few challenges out here at this location, and what we've come up with is installation of a sidewalk that runs through the yard area out here in the front. We've had Chris Manning look at that. It meets the ADA requirements. That's really one of the big issues, is if we're going to plant or market in a permanent location, we do have to be conscious of our need to meet ADA accessibility. Secondarily, we've worked with CAT and Recreation Department with the leasing of this facility. And the design really is just a simple sidewalk that runs the perimeter out there where they station themselves during the farmer's market. But it pairs very nicely with some of the use of this building otherwise, with outdoor weddings, the ability to create ADA accessibility during those events as well. It's pretty minor in terms of the work and the cost, but we feel like it's important to move forward, and it's something that we can do with our crews and do it out of season, which is soon. You know, that's just an update. I think it's a great asset that will work for all of our events, and most particularly the farmers market. Did I represent that well enough?
Yes, it's also, we're doing health and wellness Wednesdays, which will also allow us, which is a new program that we're working on with fire, PD, and then other community members. And that will also allow the farmers markets to have an indoor space when they are outside and do cross marketing, but also education. And then also clean the fort. It's really great for all of the city owned assets. So, yes.
And will not affect the tree lines that you see right
Yes.
there. I think there's a couple of trees close right here that have kind of met their life cycle, but for the most part, all the oak trees and everything else out there will remain. So,
Would it be beneficial, Ed, to put a turf in the middle?
well, you know, there's a significant cost to that, but eventually it might be an opportunity. But having the perimeter would only assist with that because they have to have an edge and a back end, and that would already be in place. You know, it's a heavy use area, so it is something that might be considered in the future. But it would provide for that opportunity by creating that border.
Could you make a note to look into the cost on that?
Sure. We can report back on the cost.
That farmer's market is fantastic.
Hopefully in the fort was a
Fleeting
future
Fort's awesome.
too.
And I think that if we can eliminate obstacles, AKA rain, dirt, and mud, and bugs, and it would be a more inviting space and more people would be able to attend when it's outside. And the sidewalks are fantastic.
Okay, next topic, city building update. We are progressing. We've hitted a lot about, I'm going to make this in a public meeting, Joe's laughing now. We are not going to hit an April 1st date for completion, but we are pushed out a little bit. And it, not surprisingly, every other construction project is feeling the same thing with lead times, but they are making great progress. I guess just a couple of highlight things to report. All the brick is on the back of the building, which means that they will be completing the envelope of the building, which is the windows and the back glass transoms all the way up in the back part of the building, which will completely enclose the building. We're coming out of winter, but it's nice now that they'll be able to heat the building even with temporary heat and contain all of that. So that's a big step. All the finish materials have been selected and are not going to hold us up as far as we can tell. So they'll have the available supplies for that, and then the furnishings have been placed on order as well. So we're getting the home stretch. So that's good news, and it'll start to change the look and feel as we come out of winter, finishing the front, and then being able to have the building available probably sometime in May. So we're pretty excited about that, and a couple of other things. The Q1, I mentioned this last time, the Q1 development agreement will be presented at the next meeting. Tower Park Ball Field Shelter, I referenced that we were working with Graybach, who was the contractor at the city building. Under a professional contract, they've done preliminary costing for that. And that's the structure back here that includes restrooms, concession, and shelter back by the ball field. And it looks like it'll come in at around $200,000, which is pretty good pricing. That's going to be a significant savings. Just for comparison's sake. We paid about $200,000 when we did the work for Shelter 3 with no plumbing and no interior space at all. So when you add the 200 and the professional service contract, it's still good pricing. So we tried to save some money doing that shelter by project managing it in-house. And that should break ground here in the next week, weather permitting. The zoning ordinance update, they did a presentation of the second part. Alyssa Duffy Rogers was in attendance last week at their meeting and did the second phase of the diagnostic report. So the Planning Commission is working hard moving forward on that update process. There'll be plenty of opportunities for the public to engage in that process, and all of that information is posted on the website that's been presented at those meetings. A couple of other quick little things. The shelter-free fencing will be installed at the end of this week, which is the absolute last piece of that project over there. So if you want any of the stray basketballs, you better go over. It's like hunting golf balls in the woods. Any of the left behind basketballs will now be contained when the fencing goes up. And that was a lead item. It took forever to get there. And I think Melissa, we're still waiting on I say the absolute last. We're still waiting on the furnishings. And we're at a year. Correct? Yes. So. They said that last February.
Yeah.
And then in our implementation plan, we had some design for some public swings with a pergola. Chris Manning did a pretty nice design. We're going to place 2 of those on the overlook over here at Alexander Circle. And we'll be building those structures with our public works crew, and then purchasing the swings. And those will be available adjacent to the public sidewalk overlooking the river back on Alexander Circle. We're hoping to have those completed by spring as well. The only other thing I'll mention, unless you have questions, is we will be setting committees in the next 30 days with the Finance Committee to follow up our discussion on the ARPA fundings, and also that committee will hear the audit report probably in late March. The Buildings and Utilities Committee, we're still waiting for information back from Duke on the street lighting project. We have had some additional conversation on the electric charging stations, so we'll convene that committee also. And then we had reference to the Recreation Committee, and we do have some plans for some of the things that you mentioned that will be presented at the next meeting with the Recreation Committee. And those committees will be asked to convene in the next 30 days. And I think that's all I have for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Can we move to receive and file that one? Okay. Moving on to some old business that I think everybody's aware of. Last Tuesday, February 15th, we held a special meeting with council to address the vacancy left by Connie's resignation. Council met, I believe we had 5 applicants, all of whom were qualified. We had a pretty rigorous, thorough review of each applicant's qualifications, and we were able to decide unanimously that Roger Peterman was going to be our best choice to serve out the remainder of this term, the remainder of 2022 on council. Roger can't be here tonight. We did know that ahead of time, to his credit. He mentioned that in his application letter that he would be absent tonight if he were to be appointed. But we look forward to speaking for, I think we can speak for council. We look forward to working with Roger, and we'll see him next month.
I would just add, I've had conversation with Roger. He'll be back in town next week. He and I will be getting together. We'll arrange with Tim for swearing in, and he's been forwarded information on tonight's meeting as well as some back information, so he should be able to hit the ground running, and you'll expect to see him. He asked which committees he would be serving on, so he's ready to go.
We see if he has the old nameplate. I don't think we need to spend any more money.
Yeah, we'll see if he still has it. That'll be a sign, won't it?
Okay, I think we've got one more piece of new business to cover, and that is a consideration of an easement access from Tower Hill Road.
In your packet, we have some sketch drawings, and it relates to a topic that was reported out of committee previously. So you may recall this particular property owner that lives at the end of Miami Parkway, and they had come before, I think it was law labor license, back in October, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. But they want to proceed with the idea of obtaining the easement from the city so that they can subdivide the property. And I think we included the memo from when it was discussed in committee. And the reason it's on your agenda tonight is they ran into a little bit of a problem in defining the easement because it requires a curb cut permit from the state because it originates off of, and I promise we wouldn't talk about Route 8, but we are, off of the former Route 8, and they were denied that application for access for probably obvious reasons. The state just doesn't want to get involved in acknowledging that section of road. In light of the fact that conceptually this council agreed to the idea of providing an easement, they wanted a clarification that that would still be true, and we feel like from a staff level, and you can see kind of the dog leg that takes it over to Tower Hill, which would then give curb cut access from a city road and not a state route. And it goes through the same piece of property that's owned by the city. And really it's just an affirmation from council that we would be amenable to that location of the easement so that they can proceed with their surveying and drafting of documents related to an easement because they have had inquiries and are interested in marketing the property with them and being able to move forward with the subdivision so that they know where the future is with this property. And if you'll recall, just make one other notation that we did, out of committee, recommend that there be language that limited to just one subdivision of property for one additional structure, and we would still incorporate that. So I don't know that it requires action of council versus maybe just an acknowledgement that this council would be receptive to that easement.
Would we be responsible for any infrastructure, because it looks like there might be some type of a bridge here, the water runoff going underneath?
No, that would not have any bridge. That's on, you're talking about the access on the Tower Hill?
Yeah.
No, that would not have any type of bridge. That's all in the.
Well, yeah, but there's a culvert that goes underneath. Bridge is not the right term for the culvert. Would we have any responsibility if we release this easement to them? What happens if that culvert backs up or needs some type of service?
Oh, well, it's just an easement, so we would still own the property. So it's still, the access rights and the need for anybody to be involved in that.
What if, and this might be a tip question, but what if improvements that they made to that section change the purpose or functionality of the culvert that is currently there?
In the easement document, we can make sure that it says what we need to say. We can make sure that they're not able to take any steps that would alter or damage or affect the culvert piping, any drainage areas. We can also set out maintenance and who's responsible, things of that nature. We're working on another type of document, very specific in the details of who takes care of it.
But so then it should be subject to approval by our engineering staff, but it shouldn't be at our expense.
Correct.
Right. I think I've always anticipated this was going to be something that, and I think it was referenced in the notes that all of this would be at the expense of the applicant.
And subject to approval.
Yeah, I think it needs to be noted too. I mean, heavy equipment goes across that culvert pipe, right, to build something, but this is what you guys do. I trust in Ron, your knowledge too.
Yeah.
Make sure the city's protected. I mean,
And I'll be honest with you, there's already an access onto the other portion of the road. But that they've taken the equipment in on that access,
Yes.
and they'll continue to do that.
So,
This easement really just gives them the right to gain access.
Yeah, and it's still all the same stipulations we came up with last time, so it just allows them to do what they want, their dream. You know what I mean?
Right. And so they're looking for financial reasons to make their transfer of property, that the city's acknowledging that they would be granted this easement. So, if it's okay, maybe we just act in that manner and give approval for the easement generally at that location. And it's obviously contingent upon any of the documents that are necessary.
move to approve with the
Subject to
strong oversight of engineering and attorney.
Second.
All in favor?
Well, and subject to review, is that language in that motion, I guess?
We don't want to get.
Yes, I would agree. Subject to review, I agree, Ken. Is that it? Is that, add that to?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
See, we're gonna do all this so well, Kevin.
All right, we've got the Finance Committee report on disbursements. Melissa?
Report of disbursements.
Lord, it was dispersing more finance over here.
Through February 10th, 2022. General fund, $440,640.09. Public Works paid out fund, $61,539.90. CPD revitalization, $424,170.67. Waste fees, $203,784.38. Police and Fire Pension Fund, $3,038.14. Total, $1,133,173.18. We, the undersigned members of the Finance Committee, recommend that warrants numbered 1 and 5 and 4 through 1 and 751 be approved and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Mr. Pendery, chairperson, Mr. Beazle, member.
Is there a motion to receive and file?
Move to receive file.
All in favor?
Aye. I have a question real quick, Tim, this is for you, and this is, just a stretch maybe. Since Lisa's not here, and, Pendery is the mayor now, are we still in quorum with 3 council members, or is he still, technically, he's still as a council member as one? Okay. I thought so, but I wasn't sure, I just want to make sure we didn't have to redo some of these things next time.
No stupid questions.
Yeah, glad you're welcome to.
No stupid questions.
I think
Stupid people ask questions.
All right. Let's move on to ordinances, resolutions, and orders.
Ordinance number 001-2022, an ordinance providing for and ordering the street improvement of Altamont Court from its intersection with Bivouac Avenue to its terminus, Avon Place from its intersection with Summit Avenue to its intersection with Edgewood Drive, Bivouac Avenue from its intersection with Southport Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Bivouac Point, Carolina Avenue from its intersection with Tremont Avenue to its terminus, Garden Way heading north from its intersection with Holiday Lane to its terminus, Glenway Avenue from its intersection with Southport Thomas Avenue to its terminus, Hawthorne Avenue from its intersection with Alexandria Pike to its intersection with Hawthorne with the Hawthorne Extension, Linden Avenue from its intersection with Southport Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Carolina Avenue, Linden Court from its intersection with Linden Avenue to its terminus, Rossmore Avenue from its intersection with Southport Thomas Avenue to its terminus, Summit Avenue from its intersection with Grand Avenue to its intersection with Avon Avenue, and Tower Hill Road from its intersection with North Fort Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Watch Point Drive, all in the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and all in accordance with the plans and specifications thereof, as submitted by the city engineer and as approved by the Board of Council of the city of Fort Thomas, and further providing that the actual cost of the construction of said street improvements are to be borne by the city 50% and the property owner 50%, and providing for the payment of an improvement assessment.
Okay, Melissa, that was just a first reading.
So you get to listen to it again.
Perfect. Moving on to the next.
Executive Order EO03, 2022, an executive order appointing Tracy Davis as a member of the Renaissance Board of the City of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting her term of office. Executive Order EO4, 2022, an executive order appointing Timothy T.J. French as a police officer for the City of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and fixing his compensation for the fiscal year 21-22. Executive Order EO05, 2022, an executive order appointing Jeffrey Lucas as a police officer from the City of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and fixing his compensation for the fiscal year 21-22. Executive Order EO6, 2022, an executive order appointing Nancy Schneider as a member of the Renaissance
setting her from home office.
Okay. That appears to be the end of our agenda. With no further business before council, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Well, you know, for the moment, you are their boss. So is there anything you'd like to order here for Eddie, Ron?
I think it's called the meeting.
Just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, Mayor.
I have one suggestion before we adjourn. I meant to bring it up earlier, but I'd like to see it on the website, the availability of the gun locks from the PD. I'd kind of like it to be prominent on the website if it was at all possible, because I don't think anybody knows that in the general public about that availability. So that's not hard.
We have a handful left. We've asked 2 different companies to provide us more for free.
Oh, I thought.
But we have some. We'll find a better spot on the website for it.
Okay, I thought you had a whole bunch. I thought
We did.
boxes.
We had boxes, but we've given quite a few out.
Good.
On that note, the CPR classes, once those get up and running, I'd like to see those.
We have that on the website as far as calling, if you want to schedule for a community, like some group of teachers or something on that line, they have a link in there to request that.
I'd like to send my wife there, she will need it. If she wants to use it, I think that's never.
Still awake?
Any other business?
Move adjourned.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, you're back to bed. Back to normal.
Ewald, can we only buy insurance from companies that don't